My long inner conflict with the Christian orthodoxy stems from the fact that I am a doubting Thomas. There can be no mistake about it, and this is regarded as a shameful thing in Christian circles. The Apostle Thomas wanted proof that Jesus had risen from the dead, and I can fully understand this, because the claim is quite unbelievable. After all, who comes back from the dead? It never happened before or after. I am doubting Thomas, and I would like proof before accepting such truly extraordinary claims. As much as I have struggled, and I have struggled, to accept certain essential Christian dogma that is required to consider oneself Christian, a good deal of what I found in the Nicene Creed Confession of Faith, for instance, I could not manage it, and this has kept me at arm's length from the Orthodox Church. When asked if he believed in God, Carl Jung replied, "You see, this is very difficult for me. I cannot believe for the sake of it. If there is sufficient evidence, I will accept. I do not believe in God. I know." Now, Jung's work encouraged me because he came to know God as a fact without relying on belief. So there are other ways toward God for those like me, given that I am cut from the same cloth as Jung and Thomas, and there is nothing I can do about it. It is extraordinarily difficult to find God in the world of things, in the material paradigm in which we find ourselves and belong to. It may not be the only world we belong to, since some psychic or spiritual self may endure, and even though there is a lot of evidence for this, science is only equipped to examine things belonging to the physical world. We cannot even imagine existence outside the four dimensions we find ourselves in: time, space, matter, and motion, because the totality of our experience and concepts, thought and activity, is produced within the constraints of and refers to the physical world. If we imagine a creator of these dimensions, then the creator would necessarily have to exist outside of the dimensional constraints of the physical world, the world of physics and chemistry. This is an axiomatic truth. Let us then describe the attributes of God from a Western religious point of view, because this will be very useful to us later. God is described as ineffable, that is, unknowable. God fills all creation. God is infinite, omnipresent, and eternal, without beginning or end, that is, beyond the constraints of time. Remarkably, we know of a phenomena present in the physical universe that is characteristically very similar, and that is light. From the point of view of physics, we know a number of things about light. It does not require a medium to propagate in. It exists everywhere. It is central to causality and information transfer, and it is the only unconstrained, unconfined phenomena we know of that has no mass, and therefore does not experience time. It fills all creation. It cannot be destroyed, so it is infinite, omnipresent, and without beginning or end. Physics tells us that anything with zero mass must exist at the speed of light, and at the speed of light, time ceases to exist. This is an inbuilt, rigid, structural feature of the material world. The slower things move in space, the faster time passes. The faster things move in space, the slower time passes, until time stops altogether in the form of light. Since science broadly rejects God because it can find no proof, is there anything we know of as an undeniable fact that cannot be explained at all from the present point of physics, chemistry, and all that is included in science? Yes, there is consciousness. The fact of consciousness leaves the door wide open for consciousness to be legitimately regarded as primary, and materiality with all its laws to be a secondary phenomenon or creation. The greatest scientists, physicists and biochemists, using all the technology available to them, cannot write the first sentence in attempting to explain how consciousness emerged from the lifeless inorganic chemistry of the material world. So the idea that consciousness is produced by and is a byproduct of material existence is not a fact, not a theory of science. It is not even a hypothesis, but rather, since there is not a shred of scientific evidence to support it, it is only an assumption. The world of physics, however, is well aware of this issue and refer to it, in a rather understated way, as the hard problem. Consciousness, including a potential ultimate form of consciousness we call God, exists beyond the scope of scientific explanation. But while science can't explain how consciousness emerged from matter, the literature of the Western religious world can explain how the material world emerged from the highest form of consciousness, God. To begin with, we can say that consciousness, light, and also fire, which was synonymous with light until a century or so ago, is associated with God and Jesus and the origins of the material universe more than anything else in Eastern and Western religious literature. In the East, consciousness has different qualities. There is the ordinary form of consciousness we all experience, a higher form of consciousness that can be achieved and is worked towards, and a more transcendent, ineffable form again. In Eastern religious practice, enlightenment, which means to bring light into, is the end goal. The person who has attained higher consciousness also attains abilities and capacities that those on an ordinary conscious level do not possess. This has remarkable parallels with Orthodox scripture, when during Pentecost luminous flames descended on the apostles and brought them extra abilities and capacities. In the West, light is associated with God and Jesus 272 times across 235 verses of the Bible. Fire is associated 550 times. There are many compelling examples, such as God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. The Lord is my light and salvation. I am the light of the world. The true light was coming into the world. In the Kabbalah of Jewish mysticism, we find a sophisticated narrative of how the material world emerged from divine consciousness, and it is corroborated in other Western religious texts, while being not too dissimilar from scientific explanations, Jungian explanations, and even Orthodox scripture, especially in regard to the pleroma, the fullness contained in apparent nothingness. The Kabbalah describes progressive distillations from the pre-material realm into the material. The first three massless, immaterial aspects are known as the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof Or. Let's consider their descriptions according to this literature. The Ein is described as the infinite, pre-material, divine potential from which everything else emerges. Nothingness in the sense of the foundation in which all things are contained in an undifferentiated state from which everything in existence emerges. It is the ultimate unknowable state before any distinction, form, or creation. The Ein Sof translates as without end or infinite. Ein Sof denotes the boundless, formless essence of God, the ultimate ground of being that is transcendent, unknowable, and beyond all attributes, names, or limitations. It is the source from which all creation emanates. The Ein Sof Or is infinite light or limitless light. It is the divine energy or light emanating from the Ein Sof, filling all existence before creation, and giving life to the universe. It represents the first stage of manifestation from the infinite, leading to further emanations of the physical world. From a different point of view, now if we examine the phenomena of near-death experiences, it is noteworthy that 76% of these accounts encounter tunnels of light, radiant light, or representations of religious figures composed of light. And finally, recent experiments using the Hadron Collider have produced matter from light. Specifically, they collided photons at high speed and produced detectable electron-positron pairs, matter and antimatter. How interesting is it that religious descriptions from antiquity do at least as good, if not a better job, of explaining the origins of the universe than modern science, and that this strengthens the underlying religious claim that consciousness, some unknowable transcendent consciousness, is primary, and the material universe, or creation, is a secondary manifestation. If we think of God as the embodiment of light and the highest form of consciousness, then science has no good reason to reject God, since both light and consciousness embody religious descriptions of God. Light shares the characteristic qualities of God, and science cannot begin to explain how consciousness could have emerged from the material world. From the point of view of science, the likelihood of God's existence is further strengthened by the fact that matter has been created from pure light in the Hadron Collider, and that, after a long period of skepticism, science is coming to accept that consciousness can survive the death of the body. If it can survive the death of the body, then there is no reason at all to doubt that it can also precede both the human body and the physical universe itself. I heard a Christian minister many years ago say, "You don't have to cut your head off to be a Christian," meaning that the Christian teaching, including creation, is not an irrational belief system. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know about that, it pretty much is. My point of view these days is quite different. Now, many aspiring Christians will say, I don't need any scientific evidence or proof of God. But it is useful to understand that people connect to God differently, some through their works, some through their hearts, and some through their heads. Ultimately, all three together is the strongest connection possible. I hope this video helps those who, like me, are inclined to approach things with their rational minds. Thanks for listening.